What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we're going to be continuing our rookie recaps for the 2024 rookie class in Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues. We've talked about the quarterbacks and the wide receivers already. Today, we're going to be talking about the running backs, and I won't lie, this class was pretty disappointing. It was pretty ugly overall. Not a lot of talent to take out of this, at least out of their year one performances. But let's talk about these guys anyways. As always, if this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But without wasting any more time, let's start talking about some running backs. All right, so I'm going to move over to this side of the screen because we got a lot of graphics in today's video. Like I said, this rookie running back class wasn't highly anticipated coming in anyways, but let's look at those rookie ADPs for these guys in the offseason. So you had Jonathon Brooks, who got the most hype. He got the highest draft capital. He was the only first-round rookie running back. He came in at the 112, followed by Trey, Benson, Blake Corum, and Jalen Wright, who were all your second-round rookie picks. Then Marshawn Lloyd, Bucky, Irving, Ray Davis, Braelon Allen in the third, and Audric Estime and Kamani Vidal in the fourth. Now, there were some other running backs as well, but obviously these were your top 10 running backs in terms of rookie draft ADP. But now that we've kind of seen where these guys started and where we were drafting them coming into the NFL, let's talk about how they performed once they got onto NFL fields. Bucky Irving led the way, 14.4 fantasy points per game. He was the most impressive rookie running back so far this year, followed by Tyrone, Tracy Jr., the New York Giants, averaging 10.7 fantasy points per game. Now, the rest of the guys, you had Ray Davis about 6.8, Isaac Guerendo, who was asked to step up and fill in for Christian McCaffrey when he got hurt, and Jordan Mason when he got hurt as well. You had Braelon Allen, Audric Estime, Trey Benson, really everybody else 5 points or less the rest of the way, starting at Braelon Allen. Like I said, not a lot of these guys made impacts in their first years. The only guys that really you felt like you could play at times were Bucky Irving and Tyrone Tracy, and everybody else was kind of just an injury fill-in for a 1 week start or maybe a 1 week kind of stream. That's how everybody kind of performed this year. But I have 5 guys that I want to talk about in depth. I got player spotlights for each of them, so we'll kick it off starting with Bucky Irving of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, like I said, Bucky Irving had the best year of all of these players. Now, he didn't start the year as the starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, that was Rachaad White, but he definitely made his way into the starting lineup at the end of the year. He just earned more and more touches as the year went on. Now, coming into the NFL, we viewed him in Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues over on Keep Trade Cut just 6 months ago as the running back 53. He has worked his way all the way up to the running back 6 in Dynasty Fantasy Football Leagues, and because of that, I know it's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings. Bucky Irving, to me, he is a sell. Everybody loves Bucky Irving, but RB6 overall feels highly reactive in my opinion. When you look at some of the value adjacent overall running backs, we're starting to value him right behind Breece Hall, above Kyren Williams, above Jonathan Taylor, James Cook. Look, I know some of these players are older, and it's nice to have the young, exciting new running back on the block, and I think Bucky Irving is a fantastic player. Don't hear what I'm not saying. I just think that this is a very reactive type of ranking for us in Dynasty Fantasy Football. I would prefer Breece Hall still to Bucky Irving. I think that there's still an argument that Kyren Williams and Jonathan Taylor, even at their age, has a little bit more upside than a guy like Bucky Irving. And this is a guy who didn't get the draft capital coming into the NFL. He didn't necessarily get the full backfield, and I think that's part of the upside. We're baking that into the price, is we hope that eventually he gets even more of the workload and he becomes an absolute bell cow. I don't know if that's going to be what happens with Bucky Irving, but hey, he is a talented player, and I think he deserves to be on Dynasty Fantasy Football teams. And if you want to keep and hold onto Bucky Irving because you drafted him late in those rookie drafts and you got that kind of payoff by getting him into your fantasy football rosters, and now he's scoring a lot of points, I love that idea for you. I just think we can capitalize on the sell, and I think where we capitalize the most is when you look at the value adjacent overall players. There's players at other positions that are less volatile than the running back position. Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, Kyler Murray. These types of assets I would much rather have in those super flex leagues when I'm trying to build out a roster, because I like to build my rosters around the quarterbacks and the wide receivers. Those are the most valuable positions in my opinion. Those are the most easy positions to build value long term. So I like building around those. I would easily trade Bucky Irving for a Garrett Wilson or an AJ Brown or a Kyler Murray. So that is why I believe he's a sell. But if you want to keep him on your rosters, I'm all for you holding him if you think he's better than some of those running backs. I think that there's a few I would prefer, but overall I could see why some people would like Bucky Irving. Just in my book, when you look at the overall players that are adjacent to him, I'm selling him for those players. So let's move on and let's talk about our next guy. The next guy we're going to be talking about is Tyrone Tracy Jr. Now, obviously, Tyrone Tracy, he was a guy who was drafted very late. I remember in my drafts, some of my 10-man leagues, I was drafting him in the 5th round. In some of my 12-man leagues, you were able to get him in the late 4th. I think that this is a guy who really exceeded the expectations. Now, this is a converted wide receiver who ended up playing the running back position his last year in college, and this is his 2nd year playing the position now as a professional. I think that gives you a lot of like hope that he's going to eventually turn into an even better running back long term, and maybe that is the case. This is a guy though who was the running back 63, found his way all the way up to the running back 17. He is at an all-time high right now in price. He's an older running back, currently 25. So when we're talking about age, and we talk about that running back age cliff being, you know, you want to start looking at selling these guys about 26, 27, 28. That's when you want to start selling those guys. Tyrone Tracy's kind of already up to that point, and he's just barely going into year 2. So let's talk about the value adjacent players, because I do think he is a sell at this current cost. You have running backs in this tier like David Montgomery, Christian McCaffrey, Chuba Hubbard, Isaiah Pacheco, Joe Mixon, and Brian Robinson. Now, I would prefer a couple of these running backs over Tyrone Tracy. If I could get Pacheco, if I could get Joe Mixon, if I could get David Montgomery, I think even Christian McCaffrey, despite the injury worries with Christian McCaffrey, I think when you're looking at a 1 to 2 year window at running backs, there's still very few players that give me the upside like CMC. He's probably a buy in itself if you can stomach the risk. But Tyrone Tracy, he's a player that I think has a short window, a 1 to 2 year window of relevancy. This is a strong rookie running back class coming in. There's going to be some free agent running backs on the market as well. Tyrone Tracy, as good as he was, I don't think he is a long-term starter or a long-term bell cow for the New York Giants. So because of that, I am selling him for some of these other running backs. When you look at the overall players, you got guys like George Kittle and a tight end premium. That's a no-brainer. Tyreek Hill, if you want to take a risk on him in his older age, with the thought that he could maybe give you 1 to 2 more years as a top 12, top 15-ish wide receiver, I think he possibly can. Josh Downs, I would rather have him than Tyrone Tracy. And we talked about those running backs as well. So overall, Tyrone Tracy, like I said, I took a lot of shots on him. I think he is a very talented player, but at RB17 cost, I'm definitely willing to get off of him for some of these other assets and just pocket some of that profit in his value insulation. So let's move on to the other guy, another guy that had a lot of hype coming into the NFL draft. It's going to be Trey Benson of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this is a player who I had as the 1B in this class. It was next to Jonathon Brooks, and we'll talk about him a little bit later, but Trey Benson was my 1B in this class. They were in a tier of their own. He started off pretty hyped. The running back 15 overall. It felt a little bit high at the time. He ended up dropping all the way down to the running back 35 before now he has creeped his way back up to the running back 24. Now, a lot of people were pretty excited about Trey Benson because the athleticism that he has, he can kind of be a zone runner, and putting him in this offense with Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. got a lot of people excited. However, James Conner does what James Conner does, and he comes out, still gives you a typical 1,000-yard season, and he goes out and signs an extension, which I think got a lot of people a little bit nervous about Trey Benson long term. Now, I think he's currently a hold in this market. I think you could also maybe lean sell if you believe that he's not going to be the guy, but I'm holding him. I still viewed him as the 1B long term in this class. Let's look at the value adjacent running backs overall. You have guys like Zach Charbonnet, Kamara, James Conner, his own teammate, Tank Bigsby, J.K. Dobbins, and Tony Pollard. Now, this is a different type of tier of running back than the ones we've talked about. We were talking about guys that were actually game changers at the running back position. Guys like Joe Mixon, Isaiah Pacheco, CMC at those other running backs that we talked about in Tyrone Tracy and Bucky Irving. Now, this Charbonnet is a handcuff himself. I think Tank Bigsby is a, committee running back as well. Kamara, older, much older actually at the running back position. Connor, older as well. J.K. Dobbins, good year, better than we expected, still dealt with injuries. Maybe not so much left in the tank for him either, and Tony Pollard just didn't give us the year that we really wanted out of him either. I think there's a lot less valuable options in this tier. So the reason why I'm holding is when you look at this list of players, to me, Trey Benson has the most upside of all of these guys. It's going to have to take James Conner falling off, or James Conner maybe not being the same guy, getting injured, or whatever it may be for Trey Benson to hit the field. But I think once he gets his opportunity, he's probably going to be a guy who ends up taking a majority of the carries. So you look at some of the overall guys, there's guys like Kyle Pitts, who again, a lot of people have been excited for years. It doesn't get me excited anymore. Legette's an all right wide receiver. I don't think he's anything special. And Njoku, some of these other players we already talked about. There's just less exciting options, I think, in this tier. So if you want to hold Trey Benson, I'm all for it. However, if you want to sell him for one of these other options, I'm okay with that too. I don't have a strong feeling that Trey Benson is going to end up being a starter long term, or he's going to end up being an elite RB1. I don't have that strong feeling. I think there's a pathway. I think that there's upside long term with James Conner's health history and his age, but overall, Trey Benson, to me, he is a hold just based off of the talent and the scouting that I did prior to the NFL draft. Now, we talked about 1B. Let's talk about 1A. That is going to be Jonathon Brooks of the Carolina Panthers. What a sad, disappointing year from Jonathon Brooks. It really is such a sad story, man, because Jonathon Brooks, obviously the big story coming into the year was he was recovering from the ACL. He probably wasn't going to be ready to play the year. He was going to miss a good chunk of the season. Well, he ended up getting onto the football field and he re-tore the ACL. He got hurt again. And so he's probably going to miss the majority of the 2025 season, which means both of his first 2 years in the NFL, he will have likely not played many snaps and he will have suffered 2 torn ACLs in that span. So because of that, this was a guy who came in as the running back 10. That was the peak that we saw out of him. And at the time, there's videos on the channel where I was saying that felt very high, and it felt like he was probably already a sell as soon as he came in because of the hype that people had about Jonathon Brooks. Now he's fallen all the way to the running back 31, and some people may say I'm being pessimistic, some people may say I'm being realistic. I think he's a sell. Look at the value adjacent running backs here next to Jonathon Brooks. You have guys like Swift, Spears, Etienne, Najee, Braelon Allen, Ramondre Stevenson. I think that there's actually an argument here that as disappointing as guys like Swift were, or Etienne were, or Najee Harris, as unexciting as he has been, those are better running back assets to have on your Dynasty Fantasy Football team at this point in time, rather than a guy in Jonathon Brooks who, one, we haven't really seen play too much. He wasn't an elite prospect coming into the NFL draft and now has 2 ACL tears to start the career. There's a lot of risk, a lot of hope, I think, with Jonathon Brooks. So if you want to hold him based off of the hope, I think it might be a little bit of sunk cost fallacy, but I think I prefer some of these other running backs to Jonathon Brooks here. So I am selling, even if it is seen as selling low on Jonathon Brooks at the moment. Some of the other players at the other positions, Jacoby Myers, Juwan Jennings, an early second in 2027, a mid-second in 2026. I think you could make an argument that Jonathon Brooks, yeah, you drafted him at the 112. An early second is basically re-rolling the draft pick, just getting out and doing it again in a year. So I don't mind you doing that strategy either. If you can do it for 2025, this is a deep class. Obviously, you would love to do that if you can re-roll that position. I don't see a lot here from Jonathon Brooks that makes me excited, and I'm pretty nervous about his health long term. It's not the ideal start to the career. We also haven't even talked about Chuba Hubbard signing an extension and him having a career year here under Dave Canales. I think Jonathon Brooks, to me, even though it feels like you're selling low, this is a player I'm still selling. So let's go to the last running back we're going to talk about in today's video. We're going to talk about Braelon Allen of the New York Jets. This is a player that I'm currently holding at his current cost. He saw an interesting year. He was valued fairly low, coming in as the running back 53 to start the year. He got all the way up to the running back 16, and then he found his way back down to the running back 33. So there was definitely a time during the season where you could sell high on Braelon Allen. There was an injury to Breece Hall, and Braelon Allen also got some starts. That was getting people pretty excited about him, but we also saw a little bit of Isaiah Davis in that time. Now, Braelon Allen, when you look at some of the other players around him, it's that same tier: Etienne, Najee, Stevenson, Jones, White. I think I prefer some of these guys still to Braelon Allen. I'm okay holding him at this cost because there isn't the injury risk that there was with Jonathon Brooks. There aren't so many hurdles that he has to get over, but one thing that remains true, at least in my opinion at the moment, is he is still just a handcuff to Breece Hall. Breece Hall is the long-term starter here. He's likely going to get an extension. At least I think he's going to get an extension from the New York Jets to stay here. If that is the case, Braelon Allen is no different than a guy like Zach Charbonnet in my book. And if you can trade him and actually get some running backs on your rosters that are going to be starters next year and are going to score more points, I'm more than happy with you doing that for your teams. Looking at the overall players, again, these are players like Darnell Mooney, Adams, K. Dotton, Cooper Kupp, Quentin Johnston. There isn't as much to be excited about, and the lack of excitement in some of these other options is what's causing me to say hold on Braelon Allen, because he is more exciting than those guys. But there's definitely an argument that all of these players could score more points than Braelon Allen in 2025. And if that's the case and you're a contender, or maybe you're even a rebuilding roster, there is no point in holding a backup running back unless you're waiting for an injury to Breece Hall and then trying to capitalize and sell high at that point. But all right, there you have it, folks. That is the 2024 rookie running back class. Like I said, not a lot of exciting rookies. Obviously, there's always one or two, and those are Bucky, Irving, and Tyrone, Tracy, at least at the moment. Maybe Jonathon Brooks turns it around eventually when he gets healthy. Maybe Trey Benson ends up being a starter long term. Who knows? At the end of the day, I think a lot of these players are expendable in in fantasy football, and I think we can move off of a lot of these guys, especially with a good 2025 rookie class coming in, especially at the running back position. Now let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Who are you buying, who are you selling, and who are you holding from the 2024 rookie running back class? If there's other players you're looking for, maybe Jalen Wright, Blake Corum, some of these other guys that we didn't talk about today, we did talk about them in this video, so make sure you go check out this video. I promise we'll talk about them in that one, so there's definitely some takes to be had. That said, if you like today's content, hit the subscribe button. Also, make sure you're hitting the like button, and last but not least, go join our Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description, helping you guys with your Dynasty fantasy football teams 24/7, 365, and we are doing a Dynasty trade show this week, so make sure you go submit those Dynasty trades that you've made in the last week or two, and we'll try and review them here on our episode this weekend. But with all of that being said, I have nothing else for you guys today, so I will see you on our next episode. Till then, peace out.